Hey, it's Sean for Radio Free Professional Wrestling. Before we get to this week's episode, I'm giving you guys a look forward to next week's interview with Andy Shepherd, the voice of NXT UK, as me and David were able to sit down with him to discuss his time at WWE and being the voice of NXT UK. So enjoy this clip, enjoy today's show, and get ready to listen to the full interview next week on Radio Free Professional Wrestling.
And when Clash of the Castles was announced, like, man, wouldn't it be cool if, like, on the Thursday or the Friday or Saturday day or whatever, there was some kind of NXT UK takeover or something or whatever. So I think a lot of us would have loved it. Of course, would have loved it. But as you got closer, obviously, it wasn't going to appear. But I think I went to Clash and I thought it was an amazing event. So but yeah, look, of course, would have loved to do something. If anyone says, "Hey, do you want to do a big go somewhere?" Of course, the answer is yes. Yeah, I'm due to be at the Floyd Mayweather show this Saturday against Aaron Chalmers, and then some very cool things coming up in the next, the short term. Which follow me on the old socials, you'll find out about them.
This is Radio Free Pro Wrestling, the home of smart and stunning wrestling takes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Radio Free Professional Wrestling. We are coming off of a crazy weekend. WWE Elimination Chamber exceeded everybody's expectations, and we had a strong New Japan Pro Wrestling Battle in the Valley. I am joined by Jake from the Winning City. Jake, it was a crazy weekend. How you doing?
Bonjour. It was a heck of a weekend in Montreal. I'm still getting some flashbacks around how hot the crowd was. So yeah, we have one hell of a show to review here.
It's RFPW's Flashback. The guys catch you up on what you may have missed in the past week of wrestling action.
Okay, Jake, we are going to start talking about the Battle at the Valley for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And if you were on Twitter, you got to see a picture of a certain person that was there. And it was CM Punk. And I saw this as I was watching the show, and I kind of noticed it during the Kenta match. And I felt like Kenta turned around and looked at CM Punk and kind of maybe flipped him off there right before he hit to go to sleep.
And then he pointed the GTS at him as well. Yeah, it was kind of surprising to see Punk there at the show. He was at the media box where he's at on the top section. But it was pretty cool that he traveled all the way from Chicago to San Jose to pretty much see the show. And I think he was there to check out the Mercedes match mainly as well. So I know that he doesn't usually like to travel a lot outside of personal engagements. But yeah, I mean it was a pretty good surprise to see him there.
Okay, Jake. So they had two matches under pre-show on YouTube. They had Alex Collins defeat J.R. Kratos by pinfall in about 10 minutes. And they also had David Finlay beat Bobby Fish, which I was kind of surprised at, but it played on later in the show. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Put the snap suplex on Bobby Fish, and it was a pretty much decent match overall. And at first I was a little bit surprised about the finish of this match, but it definitely played later on in the show, especially later on the show that we'll discuss later on with Jay White.
Okay, so the card opened up proper with Kushida, Valdor Jr., Kevin Knight, and the DKC defeating Dorada, Josh Alexander, Adrian Quest, and Rocky Romero by pinfall in an 8-man tag match. It went about 11 minutes and 22 seconds, and this was a fun freaking opener.
One heck of an opener to start off the show and to get the crowd going. Dorada hit a moonsault on the floor. In the ring, Alexander went for the C4 spike, and man, Kushida. I'm really happy to see Kushida here because we didn't see a lot of him, unfortunately, during the past year. And obviously, you can't go wrong with Josh Alexander. I mean, whatever he does in the ring, it's spectacular. So, yeah, I mean, and I thought commentary was very good. Scott D'Amore sat in on commentary for this match as an Impact guy. So, yeah, overall, a very good way to start the show.
Jake, I was enjoying Egan Rickenbody being joined by the former 80 English on commentary. I thought this commentary team was making this card even better than what it was.
Made it very important too. And Ian Riccaboni, I mean, this past year, I mean, he has really proved himself to be a top rounded wrestling announcer. And the way he articulates himself when doing matches and how well researched he is, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Ian Riccaboni, especially when doing a New Japan show like this. When he does only occasional matches here and there, I thought he did very well throughout the show.
Okay, Jake, this The second match on the main card was Kenta versus Fred Rosser for the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship. This is where I came into the card live on Saturday night. It was just right after the Elimination Chamber, and I got into this match here. This was a great showing for Fred Rosser, and Fred Rosser has done wonders from the time that he was in the WWE, and I kind of felt bad for him losing to Kenta. I was feeling like maybe they should have kept the title on Fred Rosser.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't watch a ton of New Japan Strong, but the times that I do get to watch him, Fred Rosser really does a great job positioning himself as a top person, and with Kenta going for the go to sleep, and unfortunately with the interference of Juice Robinson hitting the ring and putting it on Rosser, waking up the ref. I thought this was a very decent match, only going for close to 16 and a half minutes. So I thought it was very well versed, and really enjoyed this match right here.
One thing about this card was each match going from match to match kind of build your enjoyment for the next match coming up, because the next match was the match that I was kind of personally looking forward to, because it's the Motor Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin versus the West Coast Wrecking Crew of Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaac. This is the first time I've seen the West Coast Wrecking Crew, because I really don't watch that much New Japan Strong Wrestling. But man, they were holding their own against the Machine Guns.
They were definitely holding their own against them, like you said. This only went for around 9.5 minutes, and I thought the end pretty much came out of nowhere when Shelley made the save right there, and the Guns hit the team swing powerbomb for the pin. But as you said, each match right here has a particular build up and makes you excited for the next match. So I got to give props to both these teams right here. And look, the Machine Guns, it's really interesting where they're positioned at right now. They're mainly on Impact, and they've been around for a long time, and to this day they still, I think they are getting up there in age, but they still put themselves in killer after killer in terms of match quality every time I see them.
Jake, it makes me want to see another Forbidden Door kind of crossover between Impact and AEW. I want to see the Young Bucks versus the Machine Guns now. I got a feeling they did it back in TNA back in the day when they were there as Generation Me, but I want to see this match again. Or, FTR versus the Machine Guns.
FTR versus Machine Guns. Oh my goodness, would that be one hell of a blockbuster right there? And that's a good point. I would love to see a crossover event between AEW and Impact Wrestling. We had the talk, and then last year, I thought that last year's Royal Rumble, when Mickie James came out as the Impact champion on WWE programming on their pay-per-view, I thought it could have led to somewhere, but it pretty much led to nowhere, and didn't really have much of a relationship with WWE and Impact. So maybe Impact can go back to working some deals with AEW.
Exactly, Jake. We're moving on to the next match on the card. Now, this was Eddie Kingston versus Jay White. Now, if either gentleman lost this match, they can't work for New Japan Pro Wrestling going forward. So I had the feeling that maybe Jay White could come up and at least win this one so he can stay on New Japan Strong. But Eddie Kingston defeats them in about 19 minutes. It was a freaking hard-hitting match, and it was a nice way for Jay White to leave the company. And he's about ready to do his go-away speech, say goodbye to the crowd. And David Finlay comes out, and just like his dad, nails Jay White with the shillelagh. And now we know who's going to replace Jay White as the major heel in New Japan Strong.
Yeah, he could also an indicator right there that he could be the next leader of the Bullet Club. I thought this is definitely my second favorite match. While I was pretty sure that Jay White was losing, the near falls were so good that it had me doubting if we were being swerved. And I liked the heel turn by David Finlay. It felt like he had reached the ceiling of where a babyface run could take him in New Japan. Moving to the heel side opens up a lot of fresh matchups with him, for him. And as far as Jay White goes, it was one hell of a match. And with Eddie Kingston, this is the one I was most looking forward to. And they exceeded all expectations here. So I can't stress this enough and praise this enough. Really well done. And it's, oh man, it was really good when Kingston yanked down the straps of the singlet and allowed White to hit more, trading chops. That moment of on one of the turnbuckles when Eddie Kingston was putting the Kawada chops on him, or the Kobashi chops on him rather. It was such a fun match to watch here, and props to both guys.
Okay, so the next match on this card was the match that you kind of got me curious last week on the show. Is Tom Lawler versus Homicide in a filthy rules fight. Now, I've never seen this version of a wrestling match before. And Jake, after I saw this, I had to go back and watch it again because it was so freaking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you see at the end of the match here, Lawler hit a back body drop onto a flat ladder and whipped a chair at Homicide's face. And then you saw Homicide leaping off a ladder onto Lawler for a near fall and hitting the knee strike to the back of the head. And right there, sleeper hold on the mat. Homicide gave Lawler the middle finger, but then he passed out. I mean, Ian Riccaboni here on commentary said it was the most violent match he has ever seen under the New Japan Strong banner, and I tend to agree. It was very good. It was 60.5 minutes long, but it felt like it just breezed by so much. And dude, like Tom Lawler, he has continued to impress me every time I see him on New Japan Strong, and I'm very curious to see where he heads next here. Now that New Japan Strong is getting a revamp, as of right now, it's taking a hiatus. Hopefully, we'll get to see him more in Japan, and maybe more heading into the G1, and maybe more maybe in the New Japan Cup as well, and on pay-per-views actually in Japan as well. And maybe we can get to see him if Forbidden Door happens this summer. I would love to see him actually in an AEW ring too.
Oh yes, I would love to see Tom Lawler on AEW TV versus almost anybody on that roster. I feel like this match here made me a Tom freaking Lawler fan.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, I loved him for a long time, going back to his UFC days. But yeah, you can't say enough about him.
Okay, next matchup on the card is the David special of the Eamon Cost. Is Zack freaking Sabre Jr. versus Clark Connor for the New Japan Pro Wrestling TV Championship. It went 14 minutes and 6 seconds. And it was freaking Mac Wrestling Classic.
Yep, absolutely. As you said, like TV title matches having a 15-minute time limit, it just works off so well and keeps the rules intact. And at the end, it really delivered. Like with Zack Sabre Jr., it was such a mad classic. And with Zack Sabre Jr. having so much charisma under his belt, it really helps this match exceed expectations. And it was so well delivered that. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was that short, but still, the crowd was in awe for it, and I really enjoyed this match as well.
It's just amazing to see Zack Sabre Jr. work and see how many freaking submission holds that he knows and how he can transition from one to another
so seamlessly. Yeah, I mean he's a submission machine, and reminds me of how Dean Malenko used to trade off back in the day. So yeah, I mean it's really authentic Brit Res. European style wrestling that he has under his belt, and I really want to see him more in a top position this year because he really damn well deserves it. Hopefully, going for the heavyweight championship someday too.
Well, I can see that now, Jack. Since we have Jay White moving on from New Japan Pro Wrestling, there's a more open hillside for the top tier talent in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and you got to think you got Zack Sabre Jr. pencil in there somewhere.
You have to do it. Like at this point, you have to do it.
Okay, Jake, we're up to the two last matches on this card. Now, they did the smart thing here. They built this as a double main event because last week we were talking about which one of these matches would be the main event, but we're up to the IWGP Women's Championship match. It's Mercedes Malone versus Kairi. This match went 26 minutes and 47 seconds, and it was freaking good. Now, my only minor pet peeve about this was the ref bump so they could go outside and do some stuff on the outside. But this match was freaking amazing.
Yeah. Mercedes and Kairi was that epically good and topped all expectations. I remember that live SmackDown back in the summer of 2021 when Sasha returned after several months off. She was a babyface upon return, but then attacked Bianca by the end of the night. I recall thinking that night that her heart just didn't seem into it, and I felt that way for the next several months, and especially until leaving WWE. But that wasn't the case tonight. She was so fresh and motivated, and coming out. And we got to mention her entrance coming out, giving a tribute to Hana Kimura and having her dress up like Hana Kimura. That really got me, and I was so impressed, and got me a little bit emotional on that aspect right there. She felt so fresh and motivated and was the wrestler who knocked our socks off during her NXT run. In retrospect, I thought this should have been the main event, to be honest with you, because it was that spectacular. And I wonder myself, like, how can you follow this match?
Jake, I'm right there with you because in hindsight, I would have flipped these two matches around because I felt like Okada and Tanahashi, yes, it was a good match, but story wise, Mercedes and Curry, they brought it. They're like, we're going to throw down the gauntlet. And the guys, they almost took it, but they didn't really take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, Jake, we're on to the second of the two main events. It's for the IGP World Heavyweight Championship. It's Okada versus Tanahashi. And Jake, these guys cannot have a bad match. They can literally wake up 3 minutes later, get together, and have a freaking match classic. This was your traditional New Japan Pro Wrestling main event.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't go wrong with these two pretty much. I mean, they've done it with each other so many times. Like, they can probably do it in their sleep because it's so natural to them. And yeah, I mean, obviously they've done it so many times, but it still feels like it's new and it's still a fresh matchup, which props to both of them. Only 21 minutes, and when Tanahashi went for the top rope, but Okada caught him with the drop kick. It was a very good match. Probably a step below the women's match, but still, I still really enjoyed the match. I wouldn't say it was the best Okada Tanahashi match. I would probably refer back to Wrestle Kingdom 10 back in 2016 when it was like an all-out slobber knocker. Shout out Jim Ross. But still, like, every time you see these two on the mat, you can't deny that these two have tremendous chemistry for a long time, and they can do anything to impress the crowd. So yeah, still a fantastic match.
Jake, remember last week when I said New Japan Pro Wrestling could take my $20 and I feel like I would get entertained? Jake, they over delivered. I felt like my $20 was well spent on this card.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, especially on Fight TV. And it's very interesting because overall the show was great. And the thing is that this was a pay-per-view on top of your New Japan World subscription, but you can also buy it on Fight TV. Do you think we're going to see maybe more of these continue to happen, especially if they do come back to the US? Maybe it will. Maybe could we see Wrestle Kingdom every year turn into a pay-per-view on top of your usual events? Remains to be seen.
Exactly. I mean, it could give them a possibility to have an extra revenue stream for Wrestle Kingdom, but I feel like the thing that gives you the most value for your New Japan World accounts is the fact that you get Wrestle Kingdom there on New Japan World's app and website. So it's just a question: do they feel like they can expand their viewership by going into partnership with Fight TV, or is it risking too much and having some people delete their New Japan World account?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as of right now, I'm not feeling that, but because I'm still enjoying what New Japan does, because and with the vast archive, but it still remains to be seen. I hope they don't do it too much though, because that could lead to some more overwhelming thoughts on that, and it's quality over quantity, which I'd rather prefer to see.
Well, I feel like if they do it like 3 or 4 times a year, they just do it when they come to the States and do it for like $15-$20. I feel like everybody will be happy. A lot of people won't care.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Okay, Jake, we're going to slide over to WWE Elimination Chamber. Now, last week, I was the one saying that I wasn't looking forward to this card whatsoever. And boy, did they deliver this pay-per-view and made me look like I had egg on my face.
Hey, I was still, I was excited for this card right there and right here. And they pretty much like overexceeded my expectations. So, I mean, I know with WWE cards, we tend to get the most the most instances of under delivering, but this has to be the exception of the rule right here.
Jake, there's only one match on this card that wasn't freaking good, and it was the shortest match on the card, and I was kind of happy it was the shortest match on the card, and it was, what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Look, Lesnar and Lashley, it was a lot of fun while it lasted, but the low blow finish was very weak. As much as they were able to win over the live crowd by having Lesnar destroy Lashley and the referee after the match, it was just still a bad finish and still underwhelming to the viewer. I'm just so tired of this matchup between Lesnar and Lashley. I mean, I'm not sure where this leaves things after Wyatt stated on SmackDown that the survivor of the match better run, but Yeah, I mean, in terms of like Lashley and Lesnar, I mean, there's just no momentum left. I mean, you can argue they probably didn't have momentum going into this match, but you know, yeah, I mean, it was just another typical Lesnar dominant, repetitive type of match, and I just really think he really needs to freshen up his type of, how his character is presented. Maybe it's probably not going to happen, but I really like to see kind of like a switch where Lesnar begins to lose his touch, and people finally seeing that play out. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan of this match at all.
Well, it only lasted 4 minutes and 45 seconds, and I feel like they could split the time difference here and give it to either Edge and Beth Phoenix versus the Judgment Day, or give the ladies this maybe 2 more minutes in their Elimination Chamber match, because I feel like this card could survive being a 4 match card.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the Women's Elimination Chamber match, we had also defeating Carmella, Liv Morgan, Natalia, Nikki Cross, and Raquel Gonzalez in about 19 minutes and 30 seconds. And this chamber match, I feel like, was better than the men's chamber match, except for there's a star-making moment in the men's chamber match that we'll come to. But the right person won here. Also should have been the one leaving this chamber as the person that's probably going to beat Bianca at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's Championship.
Yeah, a fun chamber match with the right person going over in a fairly dominant fashion. Asuka was clearly the most compelling possibility to challenge Bianca at WrestleMania, and they even put her over strong in TV matches that led up to the match. My biggest criticism of this match is that the final two kind of lack suspense. I honestly thought Carmella was going to be the first person eliminated. She's a good heel who generates solid heat. I had no problem with Carmella sticking around and even being a part of the final three, but I thought it kind of felt obvious that Asuka was going to be the victor once it came down to the two of them. While I still would have expected an Asuka win no matter who was in the final two, I think an Asuka and Raquel Rodriguez battle could have led to some second guessing and perhaps even given Raquel a good boost in a competitive loss. But yeah, I mean, still a fun chamber match here.
CJ, I'm right there with you. I would have had Raquel be the person left with Asuka at the end. Now, another person they put over strong in this match was Liv Morgan, because it took 2 people to eliminate Liv Morgan in this match.
Yeah, I mean, Liv Morgan, we know that she's a very polarizing character, but the way that she handled herself in the terms of struggle and trying to overcome those boundaries, and especially in this match, really present herself very well. So I'm curious to see what they have next in store for her.
Me as well. So we already talked about Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. We're going to skip over that. We're going over to Edge and Beth Phoenix versus the Judgment Day. This was an entertaining match, and I was kind of surprised that Edge and Beth got the victory here. But we saw last night on Monday Night Raw that Edge and Finn Balor are probably heading to a WrestleMania match. But this mixed person match was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. Judgment Day lost most of their heat from their attack on Phoenix due to the long gap between the Angle at Extreme Rules and this mixed tag match. But despite those issues, they came through with a crowd-pleasing performance. It was unfortunate that Beth was late to break up the pin, but I really hope that they had I can see that they had a ton of fun of this match with this on Monday, and having Balor take issue with this historically. But yeah, I mean, obviously we've talked about it. So, Edge and Finn Balor might be the next program heading into WrestleMania, and I could possibly see an opportunity for Finn to go over here. And Ed, it's interesting because Edge talked about later in the press conference that he's still looking at options, whether he will begin to hang up the boots possibly by the end of the year. I mean, he was talking. I mean, I think John Pollock asked the question whether he wants to continue or not, and Edge is still still having discussions to himself and still figuring out on what he wants to do. So, curious to see where Edge continues to present himself in 2023.
Coming out of this match, I kind of want to see Beth Phoenix versus Rhea Ripley in a one-on-one match. Maybe Beth can be the first challenger after Ripley defeats Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania for the SmackDown title. Mm-hmm. They maybe want to see a single match between those two ladies.
That'll be interesting scenario right there. So yeah.
Okay, Jake, we're moving on to the men's elimination chamber. It was for the United States Championship. And, we're going into this going thinking, man, this is a weak chamber idea for the secondary title. They kind of entertained and they made a star in Montez Ford because I felt like he just came in with, like, I'm going to put myself over and this is going to be my star making moment.
Well, the fact that he went up to the top of the cage, on top of the chamber, and did that spot right there, which is incredible to watch. If you look at the low angle shots of him dropping down to the floor and on to for that great spot. I mean, it made himself look very dominant, and we are seeing a superstar in the making right here. A great chamber match. Everyone had the moment to shine, and they came up with so many innovative spots. With Ford, he also did an amazing job of selling the stomp spot, which brought in the trainers and created a way for Logan Paul to enter the chamber and cost Rollins the match. If there was one criticism, it's that the finish once again cast Theory as the opportunistic pest heel, when it felt like the whole point of his character growing up was to make him feel like something more than that. Of course, it's something that can be fixed quickly with a high-profile win at WrestleMania. But I still like this chamber match. I still thought was excellent to watch.
Yeah, it was. It was a great watch, and they basically built 2 WrestleMania programs out of this. As we saw the return of Logan Paul, and he was the one that cost Seth freaking Rollins his chance for another run as the United States champion. And Austin Theory benefited, and he came out still your WWE United States champion, and probably heading to a match with a certain John Cena. And a victory over John Cena would basically put the rocket on Austin Theory.
Raw is coming to Boston, and John Cena is coming back, so that could be an opportunity for Austin Theory to interrupt him and challenge him. And that'll be one heck of a match that I'll be looking forward to. And obviously, John Cena, the way that he's so professional, the professional that he is, I'm pretty sure he's going to help make Austin Theory look like a star in that match too.
Okay, Jake, we're up to the main event. It's Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. And Jake, I was watching this live, and it made me feel like if there's anything close to Rocky Ford that could be in real life, this was it, because Roman was basically Rocky walking into Moscow as everybody was booing him out of the building.
Absolutely. And the way I remember that moments in, I think it was the night after WrestleMania 33, and we saw Roman getting booed the crap when the crowd booed the crap out of him, and which I thought he should have turned heel there, but it definitely took me back to that moment right here, because dude, it's like coming in, and man, you can see all the anger in the crowd hating on Roman Reigns, like, and the way he sold that, saying like, this is my yard. I mean, goodness gracious, like, hey, like, dude, like Roman, like, he did not have that babyface charisma, but as a heel, like, we've seen it, like, he's proven one time and time and again that as a heel, he's so much better. Like, it's like they should have like just done this at the beginning of his run here.
I agree with you, Jake, because I feel like this is basically Roman Reigns' best run ever. And part of me doesn't want to see it in at WrestleMania. Part of me wants to see him defeat Cody. And you know how much I love Cody.
Yeah, I mean, but at some points, like, there has to be a payoff to all this. But yeah, I definitely concur with that aspect too.
Well, this match basically, it gave you everything you wanted except for the ending of the match. I feel like they could have gave Sami the victory here, but they went with their plans, and Roman won here, and we saw basically Jey Uso come down, and Roman got into Jay's face, going like, do you want to pick me or you want to pick Sami? Here's your chair. Why you're not using a chair? I'm your family. Use the freaking chair.
Jeez, like, at first coming in, I predicted that Jay would choose Reigns and cause Zayn the match. I also predict that they would send the crowd home happy with full on Zayn and Kevin Owens reunion to set them up. But yeah, but the creative team wisely saved those major developments so that they would have their own key moments during the remaining build to WrestleMania. And it continues to feel like the company's creative direction is pretty much in a decent hand. So I was disappointed overall. Like, I kind of expected that Roman would retain here. At the same time, like, I kind of wish that Sami won the title here, because he's like, it's Montreal, and put over the finally, like, WWE has his hand of not putting over the hometown hero, and well, unfortunately, this still happened on this night. But still, overall, it was a very fun spectacle, and a very fun main event.
Jake, this is some of the best WWE storytelling that I have seen, and God knows when, because I feel like they have basically hit every button you need as you go along the story. And the fact that you didn't have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens hug at the end of Elimination Chamber, and you come to Monday Night Raw, and Sami's like, "Hey, Kevin, we've been trying to fight Roman singly. We need to join forces." And Kevin's like, "No, thank you. By the way, do you remember Royal Rumble? You didn't help me there."
Yeah, which is kind of interesting that he said that, considering how many times he stabbed Sammy in the back as well. if he did remember, going back when they first started with the company. But yeah, it definitely makes sense to not see that immediately go off, and because they should definitely save this, and to see Kevin Owens have that hesitancy. It really reeks of very good storytelling right there. Do not rush this build right here. Like, let it progress time after time, and let it have that slow build, and keep that suspension of disbelief there. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was very well done, and great performances by all involved, especially Jey Uso.
There's one more thing from this weekend that we need to talk about, Jake, and it happened Friday night on Twitter as we were watching Friday Night SmackDown. Tony kind of called out Ariel Helwani and basically saying that he wasn't a legit journalist, and he kind of compared Ariel to the main broadcaster for AEW Dynamite, Tony Schiavone. In a way, Tony kind of took a shot at Tony.
It was a very weird interaction this past Friday. It was a very pleasant surprise to see Ariel there on Friday, but it made sense because it was also his hometown of Montreal. It's interesting because he did talk about this, talk about his whole experience yesterday on the MMA Hour, on his show, the MMA Hour on MMAfighting.com, and pretty much explained how it went down. And it was pretty much like a last minute decision, because he already flew there to be a part of the BT crew, and I think it was Michael Cole and Bruce Pritchard that came up to him, and I think within the last couple hours of a SmackDown beginning, and saying that, do you want to be a part of the show and just do a couple of hits? And I wouldn't have minded this. I probably wouldn't have cared about this too much if Tony Khan didn't make this such a bigger issue. When Ariel found out about it, the thing is that, knowing Ariel Helwani, and I've met him a couple of times, we've exchanged some emails together, and he's a very well-rounded person, very, very kind to me. But the thing is that he had to deal with a lot of crap over the years, especially when working as a full-time MMA reporter, and the way Dana White has treated him over the years. Like, I can understand him having this chip on his shoulder, and telling us that he's not going to be bullied by selfish antics. So he decided to snipe back. Now, again, I wish he could have handled it another way. Don't get me wrong. Tony was wrong in starting this issue, and this all goes back to the interview that both these guys had back before the end of the year, and Ariel himself didn't enjoy it, called it the worst, one of the worst interviews in his career, and unfortunately, Tony decided to snipe back at him during SmackDown, and it was very unfortunate, because I thought both guys didn't look very well coming out of this, and Ariel decided to snipe back and putting out there the snowman comment. I definitely thought it crossed the line there, and he should have at least just ignored it and moved on. But it became much more of a bigger situation coming out of the weekend, which is pretty unfortunate. Now, the deeper issue that probably wouldn't have been mentioned if Tony Khan didn't snipe at him on Twitter, is that is it a conflict to cover this industry and show up on WWE programming? Because he said it himself on a show, the MMA Hour, this past Monday, that he would not do it for MMA. He would not do this for, if UFC asked him, if Bellator asked him, if PFL asked him, because he covers mixed martial arts on a regular basis. He is a mixed martial arts journalist first and foremost. And he explained here that he doesn't consider himself a wrestling journalist. That being said, he has reported on wrestling news. If you remember, like when the whole Saudi rumors came out, I mean, Ariel has sources with WWE, and he immediately jinxed that rumor out. So, I mean, this does come into question now. And also he has interviewed WWE superstars and various wrestlers and wrestlers. But after this, like he said himself, like he's open to working with WWE again. He's also open to working with AEW because, like, he doesn't. I mean, he has interviewed AEW wrestlers. I mean, obviously with MJF and Bryan Danielson and Thunder Rosa. But yeah, I mean, I wish that Ariel could have handled this a different way. But still, Tony Khan did fan the flames and made it a much more bigger issue than it is. So it's unfortunate that it has delved into this down the drain even further. But really unfortunate situation. But I could see, like with Dynamite coming up, I could see maybe Tony Khan poking fun at the situation because he can't help himself, and making some reference to this along the lines because you saw Michael Cole did it at Elimination Chamber, calling when they had the hit with Ariel and George St. Pierre, calling Ariel the comment with the comment saying, the unbiased journalist asking the most real questions. I can definitely see Tony Khan making that important announcement, snipe back at him, just because I'm pretty sure that he can't help himself right there. So yeah, I mean, an unfortunate situation, but the fans seem to enjoy it. So but yeah, still pretty polarizing.
Jake, I'm kind of right there with you because I was at work Friday night and I remember you messaged me the tweets and I kind of read them out of order. So I was kind of lost for a second. Then I realized, oh, wait a minute. So Khan took the first shot. Then Ariel saw it and then he's like, oh, you know what? I'll just one up this. And I'll go like, yeah, Tony, you're a legend. Don't worry about what the snowman says. And I knew exactly what he meant by the snowman comment. And I was going like, oh, you had to go there. It just felt like two guys who were at a bar, they got into a fight and just happened to be on Twitter. And I feel like a couple of days down the road, maybe a couple of months down the road, they're gonna look at this and go like, what the hell did we do?
I hope they do. Just look back and probably couldn't have taken further than it is, but yeah, it was it was pretty unfortunate what happened here. Ariel did mention that there was people who in the back during Elimination Chamber who loved seeing it. They were high-fiving him. I mean, we always talked about the war between AEW and WWE and the constant bickering, and like Ariel mentioned it during the MMA hour that like backstage there was a lot of like high-fiving and people like cheering him on backstage, like when he sniped back to Tony Khan. We always talk about the tribalism between both AEW and WWE. And this is definitely one instance here. Like I see a lot of like people saying that, oh, only the fans enjoy the tribalism, mostly the AEW fans. But if you think that there's no tribalism in the WWE side of things, like you're out of your mind.
Exactly. I mean, like we're basically back in a mini kind of Monday Night War in a way because you got people who are pro AEW and they'll go out and tweet at Hawani like, Tony Khan's so great. What are you doing about Tony Khan? Then you got all these people who are anti AEW, pro WWE guys who are just like doing the same thing, but just in reverse. And it was entertaining, but in a way, it's still kind of sad.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. A lot of pandering and unfortunately for me, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way coming out of this. So it's like, Ariel is supposed to handle himself professionally as a journalist, as a reporter. But at the same time, with Tony Khan being a billionaire, like he should still represent his company and his brand much better than that. So that's my thought there.
I'm kind of leaning to being pro Hawani here, just for how everything started out, and the fact that Tony Khan kind of mentioned he took a swing at Ariel, but he also mentioned one of the people that was working for him and Tony Schiavone, and I'm going like, that's your main player. That's your main employee doing your best work on your main show. I don't think that's a comparison you want to do there if you're trying to make a negative comparison to Hawani.
I didn't think it was such an intentional swipe at Shivani. Maybe it's like maybe
No,
it was
I
like
don't
trying to
I
make a
don't
point.
either.
Yeah, but yeah, it still pretty much looked bad as well. So
It's kind of like quote unquote collateral damage here.
yeah, definitely agree with you there. Just still a lot of like it was an egotistical moment with both guys because these two are very like high-headed, like very hard-hitted, and both are not going to take both are not going to take a lot of BS. So yeah, but very unfortunate, and I wish they could have handled themselves much differently than it is.
Exactly. I couldn't say it better myself, Jake. And ladies and gentlemen, before we go on this episode of Radio Free Professional Wrestling, allow me to tell you what's coming up on next week's episode. Me and David were able to sit down with Andy Shepherd, the voice of NXT UK, yesterday for about 40 minutes. And we're going to have most of that interview next week on the show. We basically talk about his time in NXT UK working for the WWE and what he might believe could happen if there wasn't a pandemic and if NXT UK was able to do the takeover in Dublin. And if you want to check out some of Andy's work, he's going to be at the Floyd Mayweather fight at the O2 Arena coming up this weekend. So I can't wait for you to listen to this interview. Andy was freaking awesome. Jake, where can we find you on the Super Information Super Highway?
Great show today, Sean. Really appreciate you having me. And shout out to David. Hope he's enjoying his time off as of right now. You can follow me in the Information Superhighway at Jake Allnar on Twitter and at jakeallnar.mp4 on Instagram.
And until we see you next week on Radio Free Professional Wrestling, always visit www.realfreepw.com for all your information about the show. And until next week, Jake and everybody, have a freaking stunning week.
Brother.
This is Sergeant Arms of Christina on behalf of the guys. Thanks for listening to today's show. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and a review. Until next time, the liberation continues.